Kingda Ka is an iconic roller coaster. It opened in 2005 at Six Flags Great Adventure as the world's tallest and fastest roller coaster, reaching an advertised top speed of 128 miles per hour in just 3.5 seconds, and climbing to a ridiculous height of 456 feet in the air. To this day, it's a major reason why a lot of people visit Six Flags Great Adventure, and the ride experience is extremely impressive, even compared to newer roller coasters that have opened in more recent years. But alarmingly, there's suddenly a lot of rumors that Kingda Ka's days are actually numbered, and we could see the ride removed from Six Flags Great Adventure sometime in the near future. So in this video, I want to discuss why it does make sense to remove Kingda Ka, as well as why it makes no sense at the same time, and also an update as to how long we may still have to ride Kingda Ka. Now before I get into it, I do want to say that this video is all speculation, and I am not an official spokesperson for Six Flags or Six Flags Great Adventure. Nothing is confirmed, and there's still the possibility that Kingda Ka could stick around for much longer. But I do want to say that the amount of different places that I am hearing about Kingda Ka from within the industry being removed is alarming. I'm in a position where I often hear about a lot of interesting things going on behind the scenes in the amusement park industry, and unfortunately, I am hearing a lot about Kingda Ka's removal. So I do caution you that at the current moment, these rumors are not something that you want to cast aside. If you are able to ride Kingda Ka this year, I do recommend doing so. So let's first talk about why it does not make sense to remove Kingda Ka. As I stated in the first line of this video, Kingda Ka is an icon. It's a very well-known roller coaster, and I'm talking about outside of the coaster community, and a lot of regular people actually know about Kingda Ka. To this day, it remains a big draw for people within the northeastern United States to go to Six Flags Great Adventure. I had the pleasure of working Kingda Ka during the 2015 season as a ride operator, where not only did I get to learn a lot about how the ride works, but I also interacted with a lot of people who were visiting the park from other countries. And in most of these encounters, the international visitors would tell me that they were there for Kingda Ka. I would typically ask that group if they were also there for El Toro, which compared to Kingda Ka is actually an award-winning roller coaster. And in almost all instances, the group would tell me that Kingda Ka was actually the main draw for them to go to Great Adventure. And even with other record-breaking roller coasters, like Formula Rossa at Ferrari World in Abu Dhabi, which opened in 2010 and claimed Kingda Ka's speed record, and now the upcoming Falcon's Flight opening at Six Flags Qiddiya, which will soon stand as not only the world's tallest and fastest roller coaster, but also the longest. But either way, Kingda Ka will still be an extremely impressive roller coaster, and will not only stand as North America's tallest and fastest roller coaster, but the tallest and fastest roller coaster in the Western Hemisphere. Here in North America, we're pretty far away from Saudi Arabia. The chances of a North American going to visit Saudi Arabia compared to New Jersey is much more limited. Additionally, if the park did want to build some sort of other record-breaking roller coaster, doing so would be extremely expensive. There's a reason why Kingda Ka was one of the last roller coasters to be built during the Coaster Wars, and that's because building taller and faster roller coasters becomes exponentially expensive. If the park wanted to replace Kingda Ka with another ride, I think it would have to be something noteworthy, or else the park could face a lot of backlash not only from roller coaster enthusiasts, but also the general public, as Kingda Ka is that well known. Most of my family, friends, and colleagues are not roller coaster enthusiasts, and whenever I tell them the rumors about Kingda Ka being removed, they're usually shocked. The time frame to remove Kingda Ka also makes no sense as well. Since the ride is such a well-known coaster, you should give the public a good fair warning so that they can go get their last rides in before the ride shuts down. But as it currently stands, the rumors suggest that the ride could close as soon as this year. It's already the end of October, and Kingda Ka usually closes for the season in early to mid-November, which would mean almost potentially no warning if Kingda Ka were to close at the end of 2024. I can tell you now that this would be a huge public relations disaster, and many people would be outraged. As much as I love Six Flags Great Adventure, there were a few things they missed the mark on in 2024 for their 50th anniversary. Most of their roller coasters opened for the year with only one train in service and stayed like that for months. The Big Wheel and the Log Flume opened much later in the season than anticipated, and what was supposed to be the park's new for 2024 roller coaster, Flash Vertical Velocity, never opened, and that won't open until 2025. So there's a lot of things that guests could already be upset about, and now if you go and remove a fan favorite roller coaster with little to no warning, it will definitely be a disaster. So now let's get into why there's the sudden movement to remove Kingda Ka, and how it does unfortunately make sense, in certain ways at least. Now Great Adventure has definitely put a lot of effort and money into Kingda Ka Ka in recent times. In 2023, Kingda Ka's dark blue train came out of its annual refurbishment with awesome tiger stripes painted onto the train, well, at least the Zero car. And then this year in 2024, Kingda Ka's teal train came out of its annual refurbishment with the entire train sporting tiger stripes from front to back, and it looks amazing. Beyond that, the park has allegedly spent a lot of money on replacement parts for Kingda Ka, and apparently even purchased double-sided lockers similar to what we just got on El Toro. So as far as Six Flags Great Adventure was going, it doesn't seem like they had any intentions to remove Kingda Ka in the near future. But then we have to remember that Six Flags Great Adventure is not ran by the same Six Flags. In July of this year, Six Flags and Cedar Fair merged into one company, now as the new Six Flags Entertainment Corporation. And from what I hear behind the scenes, it's really Cedar Fair running the new Six Flags company. So Cedar Fair is really calling all of the shots. Now this is where we get into why it does make sense to remove Kingda Ka, and that's because Kingda Ka is an extremely expensive attraction to maintain and operate. Kingda Ka is the only ride at Great Adventure that requires pretty much 24/7 maintenance. It has to close by a certain time every day in order for a certain number of maintenance checks to occur overnight so that the ride can open on time the next day. Whereas pretty much all of Great Adventure's other coasters are basically put to sleep at the end of the night, and then maintenance will come in early in the morning to start their work and checks for that ride. But Kingda Ka pretty much requires maintenance personnel to be active on it 24/7. So that alone already makes the ride a lot more expensive to maintain than the park's other attractions. During my days working at the park, I would often hear a figure floated around that Kingda Ka would cost well over $1 million a year in maintenance and upkeep. And I'm honestly not sure if that figure includes the cost of labor to maintain Kingda Ka, but is purely the parts needed to keep it going. Kingda Ka is very much a specialized roller coaster, but without question, maintaining that hydraulic launch has to be extremely expensive. While the ride was designed and manufactured by Intamin, I think I can confidently say that almost none of the components of the hydraulic launch are actually made by Intamin, and each of the different parts are probably made by different companies, which means when a replacement part is needed, it might not always be easy to get that part, or it could be insanely expensive, especially if that part is custom made for a hydraulic launching roller coaster. Intamin actually discontinued their hydraulic launching coasters, and now only sell LSM launching coasters, which are much more simple in nature. So I honestly don't know how easy it is to get replacement parts for Kingda Ka's hydraulic launch. And I don't mean that it's impossible to get a part, but there might be a big time delay associated with that. I would guess that a lot of the parts needed for Kingda Ka's launch are not just sitting on a shelf somewhere. So if a part of the hydraulic launch goes, Great Adventure isn't able to just call up a company and get it right off the shelf and ship to the park. That part probably has to be manufactured and then sent to the park. And I think this is a major reason why the ride can be closed for weeks at a time, simply because a part of the launch might wear out or break, and then there's a time delay as to when that part can be replaced. Ideally, it's probably best for the park to keep a well-stocked inventory of replacement parts for the hydraulic launch, but doing so is probably not feasible, as I guess that would cost millions of dollars. Not that the accumulator tanks have to be replaced that often, but could you imagine the park just having a spare set of accumulator tanks just sitting around, or even hydraulic motors? At this point, Kingda Ka is now in its 20th operating year. The park allegedly paid $25 million for it back in 2005, and I would not be surprised in the slightest if the park has paid for the ride several more times simply because of maintenance. Kingda Ka is also not a reliable attraction, and it can close many times throughout a given operating day for various mechanical reasons, which can leave many guests disappointed that they were not able to ride Kingda Ka the day that they came to Six Flags simply because it kept closing down. Hydraulic launching coasters just have a lot going on. There's a ton of moving parts between not only the launch system itself, but the hundreds of retractable brake fins on the launch track that must retract in order to allow a train to launch, as well as pop back up in case that train rolls back. And let's also not forget the catch car brakes, which are located in the launch trough that slow down the launch system itself. More often than not, it's often faults with these brakes that close down Kingda Ka so many times in a given day. So with all of that considered, Kingda Ka is not a reliable attraction, and it's also very expensive to maintain and operate. So when Cedar Fair entered the picture, they're no strangers to Intamin hydraulic launching coasters, as they're the ones who really pioneered the hydraulic launch coaster with Intamin, with Accelerator at Knott's Berry Farm and Top Thrill Dragster at Cedar Point. And both coasters have caused Cedar Fair a lot of trouble over their years of operation. So Cedar Fair is definitely familiar with the trouble they get into with an Intamin hydraulic launching coaster. I hear that when Cedar Fair entered the picture, they basically asked Great Adventure to figure out how expensive it is for each rider on Kingda Ka. Great Adventure was able to calculate that figure, and the cost was just too high. Now, I don't think Cedar Fair wanting to remove Kingda Ka has anything to do with Kingda Ka dethroning Top Thrill Dragster in 2005. At least I hope not. As the new Six Flags company, Kingda Ka is now an asset to the former Cedar Fair, so if the ride were more reliable and less expensive, I don't think they'd be pushing for its removal. Now this is where we get into a few of the updates I have for you, which is basically a few options as to when Kingda Ka will close. Now again, please keep in mind that this is all speculation, nothing is confirmed, and things can continue to change. But here are the few options I've heard. The ride could run all the way through the 2025 season and then close. Close within the first half of the 2025 season. Close at the end of 2024 but operate through Holiday in the Park, which would be the first time Kingda Ka has ever operated past mid-November. Or the ride could close in a couple of weeks. Which is why I keep saying that you should continue to keep riding Kingda Ka. As long as it's still operating, keep riding it. Worst comes to worst, and this would be pretty cool, the ride actually goes nowhere, but you just happen to ride an awesome Stratocoaster a bunch of times anyway. So there's no harm in going to ride it if you're able to. Now again, this is just speculation, but Cedar Fair may actually want Kingda Ka to close this year. The reason being that in order to open Kingda Ka for another year, the ride would have to undergo its typical off-season maintenance, which is definitely not a cheap thing to do. Now other rumors suggest that the new Six Flags company also wants to get rid of Green Lantern, and from what I hear, Green Lantern will close this year. I wouldn't call Green Lantern an unpopular ride, at least in terms of the line it seems to gather on a daily basis, but that's most likely due to the fact that the ride's not the highest capacity attraction, as some of the park's other coasters like Nitro or El Toro and sometimes even Kingda Ka can operate at a higher hourly capacity, and a lot of guests find the ride uncomfortable. Most people I know despise Green Lantern. I'm personally a big fan of Green Lantern, but I understand the move to get rid of it. But if you get rid of Green Lantern and Kingda Ka, it does open up a massive plot of land for future expansion, whether that be some sort of new massive roller coaster, and maybe even an on-site hotel, which I've heard rumors for a good amount of time now that Great Adventure is seeking to build a traditional on-site hotel. And with all the land from Kingda Ka and Green Lantern, as well as the land between Kingda Ka and El Toro, as well as the additional land on the boardwalk, as the parachutes are now gone and Twister is also rumored to be removed. So it opens up the potential for a ton of new things to come to Great Adventure, including some sort of new headlining roller coaster. I have heard speculation that the new Six Flags company would basically compensate Great Adventure with some sort of massive new coaster, especially if they were to remove Kingda Ka and Green Lantern. But if that does happen, there's definitely going to be some sort of rough transition towards that, as you might potentially see Kingda Ka and Green Lantern close at the end of 2024, meaning the park will be down 2 major rides in 2025. Granted, we will also have the Flash Vertical Velocity opening in 2025, which will help absorb some of the blow, but the park is going to lose a big part of itself as well as the number of riders it can handle at a given time. I think the hope is to replace Kingda Ka with another super coaster that would be far more reliable and less expensive to maintain. Personally, I really hope that it's not the 400-foot shuttle coaster from Mack Rides, as even though it has the spinning trains, I just think that would be really dumb compared to Kingda Ka. I could totally get behind an Intamin LSM Giga Coaster, but at that point, does it make more sense just to convert Kingda Ka into an Intamin LSM coaster, and then maybe even extend its layout instead of doing a swing launch like on Top Thrill 2? And as far as retrofitting Kingda Ka goes, like how Cedar Fair did to Top Thrill 2, apparently that might be completely off the table. So far, converting Top Thrill Dragster to Top Thrill 2 has been a disaster, so I think the former Cedar Fair is basically out on ever doing that again. So even if they were to simply replace the hydraulic launch on Kingda Ka with an LSM launch, which would probably also require new trains, I don't think we'd see that. And I guess I want to ask you guys that. Would you rather see Kingda Ka with an LSM launch, or take the gamble at some other new super coaster? I don't think the new Six Flags company is going to sleep on Six Flags Great Adventure, and in my opinion, I think the park should become their new flagship park. Not based on its current state, but because of the population pools that it can pull from. The park is located smack between New York City and Philadelphia, and is located right in New Jersey, which is also the country's most densely populated state. In the 1990s, Great Adventure would see over 4 million annual visitors a year, and this was before Holiday in the Park. So I think honestly the park is underperforming, and could perform much better as long as the right investments are made into it. So while the sudden removal of Kingda Ka is definitely questionable and definitely brings up a lot of concerns as to the future of the park with the new management, common sense would suggest that other things are coming to Great Adventure which should be awesome. Six Flags Great Adventure just rebranded themselves as a resort for the 2024 season, and with the amount the park already has to offer with so much room for growth, I think it only makes sense to continue investing and improving Great Adventure. So hopefully in the long run, it's worth it. Now if Kingda Ka does close, I do really wish that it would close at least in 2025, and that the park would be able to announce its closure well ahead of that, to give ample time for fans of the coaster to travel to the park and get their last rides in. It really does sound like Cedar Fair wants the ride to close at the end of this year, and without a proper heads notice to the ride's fans, it will definitely be a PR nightmare. So I think that's all I have for this video, and I just wanted to make another video to address the Kingda Ka rumors. As I said earlier in the video, while this is all speculation and nothing is confirmed and things could change at any given moment, from the amount of different places that I've heard within the industry that Kingda Ka will be closing, I honestly find it alarming, and I just want to warn all of you so that you guys are able to go ride Kingda Ka if you're able to. It could close at the end of 2025, sometime during the 2025 season, at the end of Holiday in the Park in the 2024 season, or even as soon as a few weeks. So honestly, just keep riding Kingda Ka as long as it's open. The more rides the merrier, and if it does stick around, then you just won, because now you've ridden the world's only hydraulic launching strata coaster that many additional times. So with that guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to comment below what you think on this whole situation. Give the video a like and consider subscribing to the channel for more nerdy content like this. Thanks for watching everyone, and let's hope for the best. I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.